away contract, which limits the dollar amount and the number of games for an NBA rookie. The guarantee also means that Bronny, the number 55 pick in the draft, will have one of the Lakers' 15 roster spots. Bronny and first-round pick Dalton Knecht will play for the Lakers rookie team in the 3-day California Classic in San Francisco beginning Saturday. Bronny and Knecht will also play in the Las Vegas Summer League, which starts July 12th. The Dodgers scored 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs for a comeback win over Arizona. The Angels lost by 2 at Oakland last night. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm of Iteris, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising at KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you black.
Please.
Here it is, a groove slightly transformed. Just a bit of a break from the norm. Just a little something to break the monotony of all that hardcore dance that has gotten to be a little bit out of control. It's cool to dance, but what about a groove that soothes and moves romance? Give me a soft, subtle mix. And if it ain't broke, then don't try to fix it. And think of the summers of the past. Adjust the bass and let the alpine blast. Pop in my CD and let me run around and put your car on cruise and lay back, cause it's summertime.
I'm Tavis Smiley, and I am delighted to have you hanging out with us in this hour. That, of course, is Will Smith. I didn't see him, I heard about it. He performed at the BET Awards the other night. They say he killed it. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to see it, but he and Kirk Franklin out. So I have to get a chance maybe this weekend over July 4th holiday to check it out. But Big Willie is making his push for a comeback with his successful movie, Bad Boys, and now appearing on the BET Awards. Life does go on. Even when we make mistakes, life goes on. You got to keep pushing. And Will Smith is doing his thing. I ain't mad at it. In this hour, as promised, more on Freedom Summer. We've been talking about this in a series of conversations, Freedom Summer, and the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. And I'm pleased to have another guest in this hour to talk about these issues 6 decades later and what the lessons are and the progress we've made or the lack thereof. Pleased to be joined in this hour by Professor and author Akinwele Umoja. He is the author of the award-winning book, We Will Shoot Back, Armed Resistance and the Mississippi Freedom Movement. Again, another great guest in this hour to talk about the Freedom Summer and the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. Professor Umoja, good to have you on the program. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, Brother Tavis. How you doing?
Man, if I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I am doing remarkably well, and I'm delighted to have you on and grateful for this hour to unpack these issues. We had on this program a couple of days ago Cornel West, and he used a word. It's just a word, but I've been holding on to it all week long because it is the best descriptor, I think, of what we are navigating our way through right now, and that is grim. These are grim moments in America for a variety of reasons I'm sure we'll get to as we move through this hour, politically, economically, socially, even culturally, one could argue. We are in a grim moment. But if we think this moment was grim, I want to go back 60 years ago to that grim moment and just ask you at the start here, broadly speaking, to contextualize for those who weren't around, for those who don't recall, for those who just need to be refreshed, what this grim moment looked like 60 years ago this summer.
Wow. Well, when we think about Freedom Summer, most folks jump right to 1964 and the summer, but we have to even jump before that. What motivates the summer? Of course, you know that in 1960, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee was founded, and out of that organization was a brilliant brother by the name of Bob Moses. Mm-hmm. And Bob Moses was a Harvard student, graduated in math, could have, just went straight on to a PhD program, but he decided he was going to dedicate himself to the struggle of our people, and he took on the task of going into Mississippi, which a lot of people wouldn't have done during that time. They wouldn't have taken on that challenge. And he was motivated and trained by one of the mothers of our movement, Ella Baker, that voting rights was the thing he should pursue. And he talked to some of the elders when he went down to Mississippi and to the Delta, and they told him the voting rights was the thing they should work on. And so he started to work on that. And he went down there in 1961, but from 61 to 1963, there was a reign of terror on our people in the state of Mississippi. It was targeted on many of the people who were local activists or either supporters of the students who've gone down to try to encourage people to register to vote. And again, contextualizing that for your audience, today I could go to the library, I could go to the grocery store. Sometimes there's people out there trying to register folks to vote, to the bank. Mm-hmm. You could do it wherever, right? But during that time, you had to go down to the county courthouse. And keep in mind, just put yourself in a rural southern place during that time and what the county courthouse looked like. And it was usually downtown. It was a lot of, white folks out there, if you're a black person in a rural area. And if they knew you were coming, oftentimes you'd meet a little small mob. And so it was, for many of our people, was a little trauma associated with going down to register to vote. So SNCC and later on the Congress of Racial Equality Corps and some of the local NAACP activists, they would get a team of black people from the community who were brave enough to go downtown to register to vote. But oftentimes, many of the organizers were attacked. Some people were assassinated, and again, culminating with Medgar Evers as a part of that effort. And so Bob Moses got the idea because he had a project in 1963 where they brought 100 white students down from Yale and Stanford. What's the difference? Because you bring down some white boys and girls from Yale and Stanford, somebody's going to be paying attention.
Hold that thought. It was a brilliant idea by Bob Moses. You hear Professor Moses say, you bring down 100 white students from Yale and other places, and you get the attention of people. And indeed, it got people's attention. Of course, it also led to the murders of Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney, one of those, of course, an African-American. We talked about that the other day with the brother of Andrew Goodman. And so we continue this series of conversations looking back 60 years ago at Freedom Summer and what ultimately led to the Civil Rights Act 60 years ago being passed this week. More of our conversation with Professor Umoja when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Hey guys, do you want male performance in the bedroom and do you want it now? Get it in 47 seconds or less. For the first time, you can have instant male enhancement. Introducing Knox 47, the topical male enhancement that works in 47 seconds or less. Satisfaction guaranteed. Finally, after years of scientific research, our proprietary formula will allow you to perform in the bedroom like never before. Just imagine that little blue pill on steroids. No reason to settle and wait when you can get instant performance now. Forget about pills and potions that make you wait hours or up to 30 days to work. That's yesterday's news. Knox 47 is brand new. The hottest thing for men. And you don't need a prescription. Call now and get your free supply for a limited time.
To find out how to get Knox 47 for free, call now. 800-617-1621. That's 800-617-1621. Free bottles for a limited time. Call 800-617-1621. That's 800-617-1621.
Are you concerned about the youth in our community? Family connections are crucial for youth and young adults, especially those in crisis. Sanctuary of Hope is dedicated to improving the lives of these young individuals through bonding, healing, and relationships. Join us on July 11th at 9:30 a.m. at Holy United Methodist Church for breakfast and an inspiring conversation on family connections. You'll meet some of the dedicated Sanctuary of Hope team, community members who have been a part of Christ's revolution, and young people whose lives have been transformed by support and care. Learn about the Sanctuary of Hope programs that assist youth and young adults, and discover how you too can be part of the solution. For more details and to register to attend, visit thesos.org. That's www.thesos.org. Join a movement that's making a real difference.
Mainfresh Daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley, an Africana Studies professor and author, Akanyele Umoja, is our guest, Georgia State professor. Honored to have him on this program as we look back 60 years ago this week, 60 years ago this summer, 60 years ago this week, because that's when the Civil Rights Act took flight, was passed. So it's a historic week in America. While we're discussing all these other things, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and Supreme Court decisions and all these things are worthy of discourse, make no mistake about it. But it was 60 years ago this week that the Civil Rights Act was passed, and that's worthy of some conversation and some celebration, quite frankly, as one of the seminal pieces of legislation ever passed in this country. So I want to spend some time on the other stuff, but I want to spend some time on this as well. So this is one of a series of conversations you're hearing on this particular program about this week, 60 years ago, and more broadly, Mississippi Freedom Summer. You were telling us, Professor Umoja, about Bob Moses and this brilliant idea he had, born of all the fear and all the trepidation that many in the South, particularly Mississippi, were having to go downtown. You set the stage, you set the scene quite nicely, a beautiful illustration of what they were experiencing 6 decades ago. But then Bob Moses had this idea. Pick up the story, sir.
Yeah, he had this idea of bringing down thousands of college students, white college students in particular, from some of the most prestigious universities, from UC Berkeley, from Stanford, from Yale, from Princeton, all the Ivies, all the big Kent schools, bringing them down south. Why? Because as today, white lives matter. Mm-hmm. And so someone will be checking, particularly privileged white lives. We're not talking about working class white students coming. We're talking about from privileged families, from families of senators and congressmen and captains of industry, right? That somebody will be checking so that finally somebody will be checking to find out. There would be the New York Times covering what was happening. Just like in the case of Swerner, Goodman, and Cheney. Remember, when they went to look for Swerner, Goodman, and Cheney, there were bodies of black people they found in the swamps that no one was looking for. And so this would change, Bob argued, would change the dynamic. Now, keep in mind, there were some in SNCC and CORE who were opposed to this idea because they felt organizing black people in the community should be the base of the effort to build strong organizations so when Stick and Core left, there would still be indigenous local leadership there. But Bob Moses' idea won the day, and 3,000 students were recruited. And, of course, as you talked about Swerner, Goodman, and Cheney, on the eve of Freedom Summer, that incident happened. But people decided bravely, these young people decided they were still going to go.
Yep.
They were still committed to go. And keep in mind that it's not only the white folks coming, but there were 23 community centers constructed, that there were freedom schools organized in 30 communities in Mississippi. And when we talk about freedom schools, we're talking about schools that would teach our history and culture. They would teach literacy, not only for, our empowerment, personal empowerment, but to enable people to be able to participate in those voting tests, those biased voting tests they were doing during that time. And finally, they were taught math and other skills during that time from the volunteers who came, who staffed these freedom schools and community centers during that time. But another important thing was the building of the Freedom Democratic Party, that since the Democratic Party wouldn't allow black people to participate in their primary, they organized their own primaries and created a delegation to challenge the racist Mississippi Democratic Party at the Atlantic City Convention, Democratic Convention in 19.
Now you're talking Fannie Lou Hamer. We're talking Fannie Lou Hamer now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we may get to that in this hour. One of my heroes, Fannie Lou Hamer. She rose. One of my sheroes.
Most definitely.
Yeah, Fannie Lou Hamer.
Most definitely.
Before I do that, though, let me come back to two things you said a moment ago that I want to just track again. We had a guest on this program, as I said, Professor Umoja. This is you are part of a series of conversations we've been having about Mississippi Freedom Summer and the Civil Rights Act 60 years ago. And one of our guests on this program last week, as I recall, was one of those students who went to Mississippi that summer. And he and his college roommate were in their car on the way from Florida as students to Mississippi when they heard on the radio about the abduction and the missing of Goodman, Swerner, and Cheney. And he said to me in our conversation last week, he said, Brother Tavis, I knew when I heard on the radio that these three young men, Goodman, Swerner, and Cheney, when I heard that they were missing, we all immediately knew they were dead. My roommate and I looked at each other in the car, listening to it on the radio, on our way from Florida to Mississippi. And we knew immediately that they were dead or would be found dead at some point. And 44 or 49 days passed, as I recall, 40-something days, 44, I think, days passed before they actually found those bodies. But to your point about the courage, the conviction, the commitment, the character of these students, black and white, to go to Mississippi anyway, even as the news was breaking that these three young men were missing. And for days, this story kept building and building. They had not been found. But it did not stop these thousands of other students from courageously heading to Mississippi anyway. That is a story unto itself. The courage of them to go when they knew they were headed into a dangerous situation. But then the other part you made, I just wanted to underscore that. The other part you made that I want to give you a chance to sound off on a bit more is a part of the story that is not often told. Not that the first part is told either, the courage of these students to go in the face of great danger. But the story that's never really told, and you're right about this, and I'm glad you put your finger on this. When they found the bodies, those 40-plus days later, of Goodman, Swerner, and Cheney, while looking for them, they found the bodies of other black men who had been abducted and murdered. And that part of the story never really gets connected. I understand why. We're focusing on Goodman, Swerner, and Cheney. I get it. But I want to just back up for a second or pause for a second, have you say a word about what that means. That while they were looking for them, they found others. That's left out too often.
Yes, it is. And then the Freedom Singers, the singing group of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, actually made a song inspired by the fact that they were finding these bodies, that they were finding 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 bodies again in the swamp. And again, as some people criticized years ago when the Black Lives Matter slogan emerged, this is evidence that our humanity is not respected in this country. It wasn't then, and it's not today, as it should be.
And there was, not to cut you off, but the final point I'm trying to put on it is that when they found all these other black bodies, there had been no search for them. There had been no search for them that the country cared about, that the news was covering, that folk were focused on. Nothing against Schwerner and Goodman. But had it not been two white boys, had it not been two white guys from up north who joined with this brother, James Chaney, and the three of them were missing, the search would never have happened. That's what I'm trying to drive to. The search would never have happened for those other bodies that were already missing.
And J. Edgar Hoover even had to be pressured to look for
those three. Exactly, yeah.
So you know he wasn't looking
That's right.
for, Brother Jones and Brother Brown.
That's right.
Who was doing civil rights activism, working with Coren Snick in Mississippi and Louisiana and Georgia. Because it wasn't just confined to Mississippi. But they chose Mississippi because it was considered the roughest state.
That's right.
And we will say, just like those thousands of students who came down, the Bob Moses, the John Lewis, the Stokely Carmichaels, the Ruby Doris Robinsons, those folks who went to Mississippi themselves as young folks who had plenty of potential and could have chose other things to do. Ralph Featherstone and others. We have to salute their courage. And again, you talked about what we have to do now. We're going to need the same type of courage in this difficult time that you open with today, to face MAGA white supremacists that we're dealing with today, We're trying to control what we teach our children. This lesson in and of itself would be considered an illegal lesson in some school boards across the United States right now.
Yeah. Let me draw up on something else here, or point out something else here that I think often does not get talked about in our dialogues, in our historical dialogues, the one we're having now, about Mississippi Freedom Summer and 60 years ago this week, the passage of the Civil Rights Act. And this is for some people an uncomfortable conversation to have, not for me and my friends and I have this conversation. We have your own set of friends. There are some conversations that are just perennial. You're always going back to these conversations and having these great debates. And amongst my circle of friends, we are often in dialogue about the fact that we are not our parents' generation. And we certainly are not our grandparents' and great-grandparents' generation when it comes to those things I mentioned earlier: courage, conviction, commitment, and dare I say, character. It's a tough conversation to have because when you have it, people feel that they are being condemned in real time, that they're being demonized in real time. And yet, that is not my point in these conversations. My point is simply to underscore how courageous our parents and grandparents were, and to challenge us to reconsider our own assumptions about who we are. And I just don't believe that we are our parents' generation. We're not our grandparents' generation. We're not our great-grandparents' generation. For a lot of different reasons. We could debate that ad infinitum. We could debate that ad nauseum. We ain't got time for that. My question is, what say you in retrospect, again, about the courage? You started to run the names. It could be Bob Moses, John Lewis, Diane Nash. The list goes on and on and on, of course. But what say you about the courage of that particular generation?
Definitely, that was a courageous generation. But I think we still have it.
Okay.
I don't lose. I teach young people and I work with young people, and I see examples of courage, of commitment, of character, as you mentioned, every day.
Okay.
I think part of the responsibility, though, and part of the challenge, and this is one of the things that I learned in doing the research in Mississippi during that time, is there's importance for us to build family and community. And family and community oftentimes becomes the resource that's necessary to support these freedom fighters when they're out on the field. And so I talk to people, women, and we even look today at, the problems in our community like gun violence. And so we look at things like that, and I look at the women I interviewed in Mississippi talked about how their fathers taught them how to use guns to protect themselves from white rapists. But today in our community, young people get guns through the underground economy. They get it from their peers and not as a part of a rites of passage in our community. So it says something to the relationships that we have with our children. And so I think there should be an emphasis placed on us building that intergenerational dialogue, to rebuilding our families, to rebuilding our communities, to speaking to one another. So when a Bob Moses comes in our community, we can provide him with the proper support on a grassroots level. And that would be my answer to that, Brother Tavis.
Yep.
We've got to begin to do that networking again in our community.
Yep. I'm watching my clock here, and if I ask the question I want to ask now, I'm going to have to shortchange you in terms of time to respond to it. So let me just tell you where I want to go when we come forward. I'll tee this up now, and we'll let you unpack it in just a few moments here. You mentioned the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, and that's an important part of this story as well, because this starts to gestate. It gestates during this particular time. And I want to give you a chance to say more about that, particularly as it relates to the previously mentioned Fannie Lou Hamer. I don't want to leave her out of this conversation as we look back 60 years ago. So get ready to unpack that for us. You teach this stuff every day, so we're going to audit your class, at least the part of the class where you talk about Fannie Lou Hamer and the party that they created to go to Atlantic City to challenge. I've written about this in one of my books about Dr. King. And this is one of the things, people hear me say all the time, that King is the greatest American we've ever produced. I believe that. He's my hero, the greatest American this country has produced. But King was a public servant. He wasn't a perfect servant. And there are things about King that I disagree with. And in this instance, regarding that convention in Atlantic City and what they were aiming to accomplish, Dr. King was wrong and Fannie Lou Hamer was right. We'll unpack that when we come forward. But King was wrong and Fannie Lou Hamer was right. And if you've never heard me say that, you heard it. So King wasn't right about everything. Fannie Lou had him on this one in terms of what this party was prepared to do and how the Democratic Party writ large should have behaved and did not. Dr. King, again, was wrong on the wrong side of history. Fannie Lou Hamer on the right side of history. We'll talk about that. And then we'll talk more expressly what it means to be in this particular moment, celebrating 60 years ago the passage of the Civil Rights Act, when we can't get meaningful civil rights legislation passed right now through the U.S. Senate. I digress on that, at least for the moment. When we come forward, more of Dr. Akinyele Umoja, our guest in this hour on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The U.S. is preparing to announce a new $2.3 billion security aid package for Ukraine. African-American Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin made the announcement Tuesday at the Pentagon. Austin said the money will go to provide air defense interceptors, anti-tank weapons, and other munitions. Rudy Giuliani is calling his disbarment in New York corrupt. The former New York City mayor wasted no time reacting on X, saying he's not surprised at the state appeals court ruling. He claims he was disbarred by a bar association, which is an integral part of a Democrat one-party corrupted court system in New York. The court decision cites his role in former President Trump's election interference efforts, including false stolen 2020 election claims. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
9 out of 10 hiring managers are having difficulty hiring. Robert Half is here to help. Their recruiting professionals utilize their award-winning AI to connect businesses with highly skilled talent. At Robert Half, they know talent. Visit roberthalf.com/talent today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers have agreed to give Bronny James something that most second-round picks in the NBA draft don't get. A fully guaranteed contract. Terms of Bronny's contract have not been released, but whatever final terms are negotiated, LeBron's son will have a guaranteed deal. The guarantee means Bronny will not be signed to a two-way contract, which limits the dollar amount and the number of games for an NBA rookie. The guarantee also means that Bronny, the number 55 pick in the draft, will have one of the Lakers' 15 roster spots. Bronny and first-round pick Dalton Knecht will play for the Lakers rookie team in the 3-day California Classic in San Francisco beginning Saturday. Bronny and Knecht will also play in the Las Vegas Summer League, which starts July 12th. The Dodgers scored 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs for a comeback win over Arizona. The Angels lost by 2 at Oakland last night. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again. At work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text LION to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. Text LION to 42424. That's LION to 42424.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Africana Studies professor and author KBLA Umoja, who I'm pleased to have on this program as we continue our dialogue. In case you've just tuned in, we continue our series of conversations, in fact, about Mississippi Freedom Summer and the Civil Rights Act, which passed 60 years ago this week. There's so many other conversations this week drowning out any focus on this historic moment for the country and certainly for African Americans 60 years ago this week. We want to spend some time addressing this, even as we have to address all the other issues that are pressing in this moment, politically, socially, economically, culturally. But let's not lose sight of what happened 60 years ago this week when we, our community, forced, with the help of others, of course, but we were at the forefront of, and I've said, of getting this passed, of course. I've said many times that this country and its founding documents deserve, we need more conversation about the founding documents of this country. But as you well know, our founding documents were, in fact, pro-slavery in their language. They were pro-slavery in their writing, the founding documents of this country. And it is only through, how might I put it, only through interposition and nullification and protest that we have made this country what she is today. And you always hear me say, I reference this country, Professor, as an experiment in democracy, not a democracy. And these days, if I had the time, I could argue that we are, in fact, an oligarchy or a plutocracy. But at best, we are an experiment in democracy. We've got a Madisonian framework for democracy, but we ain't there yet. So we got a long way to go. Even as we try to export democracy around the world, we have not perfected it here. But we wouldn't be where we are today were it not for black people pushing through, protesting for civil rights and voting rights. And so when we have these major anniversaries, it's worth pausing for just a second to consider what we have done, how we've learned to love this country in spite of, not because of. What have we done to make America the country that she is? How much more work there is to be done, but we need to pause to take stock of these realities on these major anniversaries. And so this week, as we celebrate 60 years since passage of the Civil Rights Act and 60 years since Mississippi Freedom Summer, we're spending some time in dialogue with experts about what it was like then and where we are today. So I said a moment ago there are a couple of things I want to sort of get to now that we're here, and let me just stand down and let you talk to us about Fannie Lou Hamer and the Freedom Democratic Party and what was gestating around this time politically. We've talked about what was happening in terms of voter registration in Mississippi and down south, but let's broaden the scope and give you an opportunity to talk to us about what was happening politically, indeed at the national level, indeed at the Democratic Convention, which we're headed to this summer in Chicago. But take me back to Atlantic City.
Atlantic City, of course, Lyndon Johnson is the president of the United States, and he's in, from his perspective, a precarious position. Black people are voting in the North, and so he's relying on black votes in the North, but he's still relying on who we call Southern Dixiecrats. White folks in the South still having white supremacist attitudes. They had excluded black people from the primaries in the Deep South states, and so he didn't want to lose those Democrats. He's vastly losing them. And so he's Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a part of the Freedom Democratic Party, which was Bob Moses and others organized to have their own primaries. They would elect their own candidates to go and a delegation to go to the Atlanta City Democratic Convention, and they wanted to seat their delegation, Fannie Lou Hamer, and we haven't said enough about her. She's a sharecropper who decided she was going to leave the plantation and go vote, and because of her action to go vote, she's incarcerated and beaten old slavery tradition. They get black male prisoners to beat her while she's incarcerated, while she's in captivity. But she doesn't give up. She hooks up with these younger folks, becomes their elder, becomes their mentor, houses them during the campaign to Freedom Summer, houses them and has her shotgun and rifle for protection. While she's in there, she wasn't with somebody I would consider to be nonviolent, but she's a part of that delegation along with other black folks who are preachers, who are sharecroppers like Fannie Lou Hamer, who are housewives, who are farmers, who are part of this delegation, along with some white allies. There were a few white allies who are part of this delegation also, and they wanted to be seated. And Travis, I remember hearing you speak one time, and you said how black folks call you Travis. But anyway, they want to be seated, and President Johnson, particularly after Fannie Lou Hamer is presenting the case of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party on television during that time, he decides to hold a press conference because she is so powerful and really highlighting the terrorism that's happening to our people in the state of Mississippi during that time. And like I said, it could be said of Alabama, Georgia as well. And so President Johnson tries to divert attention from that. They offer a compromise where the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party would only get 2 delegates in the entire Mississippi delegation. That's proposed, and you mentioned Dr. King and Whitney Young and Roy Wilkins and other black leaders being on the wrong side of history during that time.
That's right.
They supported the compromise, along with union leaders.
That's right.
Along with clergy from the Catholic Church, from the many other liberal clergy we would consider during that time. And Fannie Lou Hamer and the Mississippi Democratic Party, the SNCC core members on the ground, they didn't go for it, and they protested during that time. They said they didn't come there for 2 seats.
That's right.
They came there to be seated. And so that was a major part of courage at that time. But that stand is what shifted the dynamics in the future for the Mississippi Democratic Party. So when we look at later on, you see the election of Barack Obama. And if you look at the character of the Democratic Party in Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia today, the stand that Fannie Lou Hamer and others took at that time is responsible for that. We also should say that sort of leads to what we would later call black power, because SNCC members and other civil rights activists disenchanted with President Johnson and others felt like they had to rely upon their own resources in the South. Right. And black people relying upon their own resources, building our own organization, getting our own funding, is what leads to what we call black power. Now, we need to pool our resources to control the economies in our community, to elect our own officials, not just have the right to vote.
To your point,
but to have black people represent us.
No, to your point now. To your point now. Let me just put a finer point on it. We'll come forward here. So you heard the professor. I allowed him to unpack it. He did it beautifully. Here again, Dr. King and the establishment were wrong. They agreed with that compromise to give these Negroes 2 seats. And Fannie Lou Hamer said, we didn't come here for 2 seats. And there's a documentary about this. The name of it will hit me maybe in 2 minutes. But there's a documentary about what happened that summer in Atlantic City. King, Whitney Young, the establishment Negroes at that time were wrong. You heard me say it. And Fannie Lou Hamer and SNCC and Stokely and others were right. And they protested. And the Professor Moses did a great job of drawing a line from that to where we are today. He just said it's their stance then that raises the issue of how we elect ourselves to office. So think about this as we come forward. 60 years later, the same state of Mississippi that we're talking about right now, 60 years ago, Mississippi Freedom Summer, that same state now has more black elected officials than any state in the country. Think about that. Mississippi has more black elected officials than any state in the country. That doesn't happen because King and the establishment agree with the Democratic Party. It happens because they protested, they fought back for their right to self-determination, and now this state, Mississippi, more black folk elected than any other state. I digress. For now, you're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They want to get your number and put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement. Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Eggs are a staple in our diet, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm-fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties. Classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Happy anniversary, KBLA! KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's so many more years of loving and serving our community. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
If you're an adult in need of an accredited high school diploma, the Los Angeles Public Library can help. You could earn one for free in as few as 5 months, online with 24/7 access. You also get a personal academic coach, plus special training focused on 9 in-demand industries, as well as a resume and cover letter to advance your career. Visit the website at lapl.org/diploma.
A Gain Scent Bead story. Jim was at the laundromat when he heard his ear said, "Maraca, senor," but his nose said, "Hey, freshest scent ever." Following his nose, Jim found the man pouring a bottle of Gain Scent Beads into the washer. The scent, the freshness. Jim blurted, "Sir, your scent Maraca smell amazing." Actually, Jim, most noses call them Gain Scent Beads. Try Gain Scent Beads. Way fresher than detergents alone.
Sounds different. This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley and Akinyele Umoja, professor of Outcomes Studies, author who I'm pleased to have on this program. My time is getting away from me. Let me just ask you point blank. What does it mean for you? I've asked others this question, but not of you. So here's your turn. What does it mean for you to be in this particular American moment? And I'm leaving it as broad as I can, deliberately and unapologetically. What does it mean for you? Let me put it another way. Situate. Yeah, that's the right way. That's the right frame I want. Situate for me our being in this particular American moment, celebrating, looking back on the Civil Rights Act being passed 60 years ago this week.
Well, I think that we're in a similar position today as we were in 1964, a dilemma where we don't really feel we can depend upon the powers that be. And that might even come, you talked about some of the establishment Negroes. We can't even be dependent upon them. We have to think about how we can pool our own resources, how we can develop our own infrastructures. I really love the book by Charles Blow, The Devil You Know.
Yeah.
He talks about how the South, the same places we couldn't vote before, but serve as resources or can serve as a region or resource for us to get some black empowerment, for us to control some institutions. When we think about Mississippi, you mentioned the amount of black elected officials there, but former felons can't vote.
Mm-hmm.
But in some northern states, you got some folks voting and they're in prison, right? White folks voting who are incarcerated. So can we think of strategies to see where we can get state power?
Yeah.
If we can shift the dynamic where we can, elect governors, senators from these states. But again, what type of agenda do these politicians have, and who are they accountable to? Are they accountable to our people or corporate interests?
I hear your point.
So we need to rethink what black politics means for us in the 21st century.
I had Charles Blow on when that book came out, and I said to Charles, I love the book. I hear the case you're making. It's a powerful case about the power that we could yield if we all move back down south. But I told him, while I'm from Mississippi, I was born there, and I love it. I ain't moving back, Charles. I am not leaving L.A. to go back to Mississippi. And let me just say right quick, when I made the point that Mississippi has more black elected officials than any other state in the country, that is correct. But it's also not utopia. And that's the point Professor Emoja is making. It ain't utopia. They still got a whole lot of issues. They couldn't get clean water in Jackson, Mississippi for black people to drink. So the state is not utopia by far, but a lot of progress has been made, and that in part is due to Mississippi Freedom Summer 60 years ago, Fannie Lou Hamer and her work, and so many others, which we are celebrating in this hour of Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007 they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
please? As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust new Febreze car vent clips. Now with 3 times greater scent control. Because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with new Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing. Which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up Oscar!
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
Professor Umoja, I made the point earlier in this conversation, as you well know, that 60 years after passage of this week of the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, Civil Rights Act 60 years ago this week, we have not been able to get meaningful civil rights legislation passed through the Senate in Joe Biden's first term. Who knows what the next term will bring? Who knows if we'll have a second term? Who knows who the president's going to be for the next 4 years? What we do know is that we didn't get meaningful civil rights legislation passed with John Lewis's name on it, who you referenced earlier in this conversation, in this first term. We talked about Dr. King, certainly referenced him earlier in this conversation. So I close with that Kingian question for you. Where do we go from here?
Where we go is to our churches. Where we go is to our social organizations. Where we go is to our neighborhoods and begin to have conversations with each other to organize. As you said, no matter who the president is, we got to build. We got to make our community safe for our elders and for our children, and we got to prepare for the future. And we have to build institutions. So no matter who the president is, we got to vote locally. We got to get control of school boards and city councils with an agenda. These other people got an agenda, to disrupt, to make sure our history is not taught. We still have a struggle for reparations that we have to engage in. But that's going to take us organizing on a grassroots level. So the same thing that Fannie Lou Hamer did after 1964, after that convention, she came home to Mississippi, to the Delta, and organized a farming cooperative, agricultural cooperative, and other economic institutions. And so we have to do that building. Struggle continues, and we got to continue to fight, as you mentioned, for self-determination, for our self-respect, and really, with these micro forces out here, we got to prepare to defend ourselves. With whatever means.
I think Fannie Lou Hamer was about, don't quote me on this, I think she's about 5'4", 5'6". She wasn't very tall, so let me call it 5'4" as I recall. I have to check myself, but you'll take the point of what I'm about to share with you. One of my favorite, not one of my favorite, in fact, Fannie Lou Hamer quotes is that if I fall, she made it clear she wasn't trying to fall. She said, but if I fall, I'm going to fall 5 feet 4 inches forward. I will fall 5 feet 4 inches forward. And when we come forward, we'll talk to Noel Paul Stuckey, one of the famed members of Peter, Paul, and Mary, and talk about the music and the artistry of that time that helped get this legislation passed 60 years ago. But for now, we thank Africana Studies professor and author KBLA Umoja for his appearance on this program today. Once again, his book is called We Will Shoot Back, Armed Resistance in the Mississippi Freedom Movement. Professor, I've been honored to have had you on this program looking back 60 years ago and talking about where we go from here. Thank you for your time, your insight. Good to have you on the program, sir.
Thank you, sir. Keep up the good work.
Likewise. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thanks for joining us on Like